Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our next episode where I introduce our next Agile Academy Ambassador. This time, I'm hosting Bernd Joussen. Bernd and I got to meet in one of those meetings of the Cologne Scrum community, and I was immediately intrigued to learn more about Bernd once I heard that by education, he's a professional cook. Given that I am a hobby cook myself and very interested in becoming better at using the knife and doing all sorts of things, Bernd and I got into many longer conversations. Now we've been collaborating with at various clients for many, many years. I'm super happy that Bernd decided to also become an Agile Academy ambassador. And today we will be exploring his journey to the work that he does today. Bernd, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Sohrab. I remember that conversation in Cologne where we found out that I've been doing this.
Yeah, that you've been doing this.
It was cool exchanging on recipes and stuff. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so what you and I have in common, we both used to work with knives, or in my case, rather a scalpel. Right?
Yours is pretty much smaller, but not is very sharp as well, right?
Yeah, and in my case, people could die. In yours, although if you just provide the wrong stuff and there's food poisoning, people could also die, right?
Good point. But both what we cut, they don't no longer complain about being cut. So
yeah, absolutely. So Bernd, similar to with all the other ambassadors, I'd like to start with the point where your Agile journey started. And yes, you can also go a bit further back, talking about the education you received or the training you received to become a cook, and maybe as part of that also make some connections. To what extent did your past allow you in the first place to embark on this Agile journey?
Yeah, it makes sense. I don't want to go too far, but we are talking also about what made me the coach and the ambassador I am today. And what I can think is the story is that change has been part of my life all over, growing up, educating, becoming a father, creating new stuff, building a house, changing places, changing relations. And so over more than 30 years where I have been working in companies, because I'm consulting only since 5 or 6 years as a freelancer, I have been in companies, especially in tech companies for more than 20, 25 years in leadership positions. And I have been faced with change all over that time, and I have done different jobs in different contexts. And so I think this has made me the coach I am today.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know you were that old, Bernd, but you look much younger. No, but on a serious note, so it's really interesting how you immediately jumped into this topic of change. And change, I mean, there's this quote, right? Change is the only constant in your life, in my life. Some of the changes we made ourselves, we decided, right? So for example, switching careers, some of the changes other people decided. So if an organization decides to change the way they work, the structure, if they decide to promote you into a new position, right? You can still agree or disagree, but those are changes that are then at least offered to you, and sometimes are decisions that are made on behalf of you. So you have been dealing with change, and now you're supporting your customers with change. But with regards to agility, I would like to understand, like, where did this whole thing start? 25, 30 years ago, when you probably started your career in tech companies or in companies in general, not every single one of them was working this way, right?
Absolutely. And I had no idea. So I started in the tourism industry, and I'm some sort of I always like being an interface between departments. So during that time, I started in a tourism company, and I worked with the product management and the IT. I worked in purchasing and product management. I was always the guy in the middle. And when I got my first leadership position, I was about 28 years old, 29 years old, and I became the lead of the team. So this was a major change. And I really had to deal with all these new situations. And we we did of course a lot of traditional management. And when I learned my first leadership, um, this was really, yeah, 30 years ago. So I think it was quite traditional and not the way it is today. I did a lot of classical project management as well, but the longer I did this and the more I dealt with people in change and leading teams and setting up teams in organizations and during times of change, I learned that it's really something that they have all in common. And it's about dealing with the people and leading them and guiding them. And it was very traditional in the 2000s and 2010, where I did a lot of IT project management. But the more agility became part of my life, and I remember I did my Scrum Master certification, I think in 2012. I had no idea what this journey is really about. But I really made sure that I always create a context where people say, okay, we go this way. We see the target. We want to become a community and a team that strives for creating value for customers. So regarding self-organization, I think it was completely different. But the more I got into this and I made an education as a systemic coach, I made also this class for being a mediator, so dealing with conflicts. All this came additionally to that, and it made me really understand what agility means and what people need during these times of change. So I do this, I would say, since 15 years. And I begin to more and more understand, and I'm convinced that people can really make the best out of their potential when they understand where are we going to, what is the conditions, and what is the target picture, but making them become better and also supporting leaders to become better. This is what really is all over my career during these times, starting as a new leader and now being someone who consults leader as well.
Yeah. So thanks for that, Bernd. Now, you mentioned you became a team lead. You were in the intersection of product and tech and purchasing, right? In a
Right.
tourism company. And probably they were not working in an agile way, etc.
Not really.
Now, you become the team lead, your first leadership position.
Mhm.
What were the challenges you faced back then as an individual, as a team, as an organization, which then later on, when you learned about agility, you were like, ah, I wish I have had access to these tools, to this knowledge, to this experience so much earlier in my life?
Mhm. I thought it was very important to have all the solutions being a leader. I remember when I did this course with you, the becoming for the agile leader, the
Mhm.
CAL, and we learned about these different types of leadership. I think it was pretty much the traditional leader who had the plan and the pressure to have all the knowledge, to know about processes, to know about the solutions. And I was approached by my team when they didn't know how to proceed, when they need to have decisions. And I was really not asking enough, and I was not really involving them in the problem. I was thinking that I need to be the one, the expert who knows it all and who starts doing and making sure and controlling everything. And when I was a Scrum Master, the one who was guiding me and coaching me said, I think you have a very good asset and you have very good skills dealing with people and methods, but still it happens that you give a lot into the team. So I was suggesting solutions. I was suggesting try to make sure that I remove impediments. I was dealing with everything, feeling responsible to stakeholders, coaching product on. I was the one-man show, and I wish I would have known earlier to ask these questions, especially in these complex situations where I was no longer dealing with the traditional IT project management, because there it happens that it is much more helpful, right? You have knowledge that you can refer to, but in this in these changes and in these complex situations, inventing new products. I have been with companies that were really in search of completely new business models, right? There are no answers, but there was a lot of pressure, and I felt much of this pressure and of responsibility. So I wish I had known that I can rely on my team and ask them questions and ask them back, what would you say? What would you need to find out? Where can we create more experiments and iterate? This is something I really learned and got trust and confidence in myself all over the years, being a leader in times of change and leading through change.
It's so interesting, Bernd. When I ask this question, where did your agile journey start? A lot of people come from, oh yeah, we were building this product and we were not being able to deliver it, and or we managed to build this product and the customer didn't like it, right? You take a completely different angle. You take the angle of being really collaborative. You take the angle of meeting your team members, as we say in Germany, on Augenhöhe, on an eye-to-eye
Yes,
level, right?
yes.
Including them in the solutionizing, which is also collaboration. You take the angle of how do we deal with change, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
it's so interesting to hear this, because based on the experiences we make, right? We all have different glasses on, and we see the world and then respond to questions based on the glasses, based on the biases. So as you're talking about change, right, and your own leadership journey, let's jump a few years, maybe even decades, from when this whole thing started for you to what you do today. Um, my understanding is that you still, and you mentioned this to some extent, work with individual leaders, you work with teams, you work with groups of leaders that also want to change organizations. And maybe you can share a bit more of what are the contexts where your experience, your superpowers as an ambassador
Mhm,
work best, right?
mhm,
What is it
mhm.
that you are particularly passionate about when clients approach you?
Yeah, that's a good one because it really is representative for what I like to see myself in today. I really used to come into companies and organizations today when they have done and gone through training and education, when they have some knowledge already about frameworks, about methods, about how to deal with complexity. Um, and when they ask me to help, they have reached a point where they feel it's so a bit of vague and still we don't understand. We have all the knowledge, we have gone through this, but still it is not creating the value we expected.
Mhm.
And the value others um, told us that we were going to have to do twice the work in half the time and being faster and time to market. And we see that people are struggling in this change. We see that there are conflicts because we have new structures and old structures. And how can we socialize these working together in frameworks, delegating responsibility, sharing more leadership, having a completely new approach. And when they come to me, they really want to make more use of agility, and it's more of an end-to-end agility rather than only looking for ways of working. And this is where I ask a lot of questions because I have been in leadership positions on their chair for more than 20 years as well, being a senior leader that who is being told that there will be a transformation, things will change. And first I say, yeah, do that. That's cool. Let the teams work on that. But when it comes to leading, when it comes to reorganizing and focusing and making sure that really agility turns out to be value for the customer, not only, but for the organization, they struggle. And so when I come there, I use my knowledge of how can we bring agility into operations. And I start not with change. I start with how have you come so far that you can call me now and be in a position to think about that? and I say, and I appreciate what they have been, and I appreciate the people who have made it so far. And I try to make sure that I really reach them, and I create rooms where leaders come into a position to talk about how are we currently working and what do we know about our product, our company, about our teams in times of working remotely, leaders during Corona situation. Everybody had the same situation. So I really turn towards the people who shall change to leaders, but I really make sure that I connect with them as they are today. I give them a target picture. I tell them about possibilities of agility. But when I come to them, I start creating a target picture together with them. Second topic is, as I said, I have been a mediator, a conflict professional for more than 10, 12 years. So I really made sure to understand how are conflicts, how are they arising, what types of conflicts do we have? Where do we see that conflicts are results of dysfunctions in organizational structures? It's not about social conflicts. It's the thing you see, like the ice you see above the
The
sea.
iceberg, yeah.
Right. Yeah. But
See,
underneath, it's the organization. And to make sure that they understand how this connects and is together and why a conflict is extremely important for each and every organization, because a conflict is telling you something about your collaboration and your organization, and trying to invite conflicts also to leaders as something they don't have to solve. It was when I started, I thought I have to solve conflicts, but it's not about solving. It's about acknowledging. It's about appreciating. It's about welcoming and using them, and making sure that the competence of a team. Then we go one level below. That the competence of a team is really how can we make sure that we use conflicts in a good and constructive way. And I try to make this become more a part of their daily business. And I try not only to solve them via mediation, I try also to bring conflict competence via conflict training, communication methods, like the approaches like radical candor, anything that helps to really to invite conflict situations rather than being afraid of conflicts because we don't know how to deal with them. And I show them and I educate and I create formats where we also find out how have we been as leaders socialized in our families when it comes to conflict situations or feedback that we didn't like. And so I try to bring this together. So the first picture is bringing agility to more creating value end to end and making sure that we not only work agile, but really have an agile end to end
approach.
approach. On their way, there will be, of course, things that we need to change in leading, in working as a team on the different levels. And while this happens, there are situations where conflicts may arise. But the third topic, and this is my bread and butter, because my company is the team dynamo, that's how they call me. I'm working with teams, but I want to bring this into their journey. It's not about only working with teams, it's about empowering them to really make good decisions and to use agility more to find their way through. And doing this in a completely approach. I also like this flight level approach, for instance, that I work with. Makes it a complete package for them to understand where are our resources and on which level do we have to create transparency and to bring people into conversations about where we want to go.
Yeah. Oh, this is incredibly interesting. Now, I want to go deeper on one of these topics specifically, the mediation. You talked about conflict, right? And
Yes.
I once heard this quote. I think it goes back to Mary Parker Follett, which is, "A conflict is first and foremost a difference in opinion."
Mm-hmm.
Right? And now, once you look at it this way, it's not threatening, right? It's you can even welcome it because you get to get different opinions in there. And this is also what you mentioned. But what I see, and you talked about this, that a lot of people deal with conflict based on how they've been socialized in their families, in schools, at work as well. That the moment there's a conflict, people feel a lot of tension, a lot of anxiety, right?
Yes,
They
yes,
feel threatened.
yes.
And just the fact that they feel threatened, I mean, I can look at this from a neurological perspective, neurophysiological perspective. The moment the sympathicus gets activated, they are in fight, flight, or freeze mode. And that's not a constructive mode to have have a conversation. And what I also understand, based on what you were saying, that as a mediator, it is not your job to find a compromise, right? It's first and foremost to facilitate, and please correct me on that if I'm wrong, it is to facilitate an environment or create an environment where people can talk about that conflict, where they can become curious about that conflict, where
Hmm.
they collectively might even explore additional opinions to the ones they already hold, which brings in potentially, right, even more tension. But through that process and doing this consciously, doing this respectfully, they come up with better solutions. Did I get it right?
I think you mentioned a very important point. Um, it's about really understanding what happens. It's not necessarily finding a solution. A compromise is one solution you can find. When a mediation is a bit different. Um, there you really have an order to create a result both parties can be sufficient with. Um, it is really important to start creating this room where they can get these insights and when they find the time to listen. So when I do this, I make sure that it is a room where people meet, that they want to go into this process, where they rely on the safe space that I create. And I make sure that it is listened, what needs to be listened to, and I make sure that it is spoken out what needs to be spoken about. And when they come to me, it may happen that they haven't spoken about this or anything like that for months. And the first thing they remember and the first thing they realize is that when I sit with them in a setup, let's take this two parties sit and two leaders sit there and have this situation. I recently had this. Then they feel that there is someone listening to their opinion and to their problem. And the one thing they said, this leader said, it's so great that there is someone asking me this question. How are you doing? How are you feeling in this situation?
Mm.
Because he has never been asked. And they really have very high sensitive feeling, therefore, that they really see what is he talking to me? What is he talking to him? They feel is the setup in the room correct? Um, and it's not about solving; it's about directing communications. They don't speak together in this situation, and I make sure that I speak to him and I speak to her, and then we try to find positions
Mm.
and we don't solve them. But creating this room for insights is the very important step. That's why I also, that I'm doing retrospectives for managers, right? It's not about that we create results like in a team, who does what by when. It's about creating a safe space where they can feel weak, where they can
Be
sometimes
vulnerable.
their tears are vulnerable, right? And this is what it is about. But I try also to make them aware that not discussing this or not talking about this is really, really a problem, also a commercial problem. Because what happens when there are dysfunctions? What happens when there are conflicts that are not being talked about? It becomes a leadership problem because collaboration gets unproductive, quality goes down, demotivation rises. So this becomes a leadership problem, and it's not about avoiding conflicts. It's about making sure that we can find a way to deal with them, because
You
we are all individual people and we all have different needs. So welcome, we have to deal with that, right? Independent if we're in a family or if we are in a football club or if we are in an organization. So deal with that, and I try to really create rooms where they can discover that. And there are different ways doing this with teams. There are different ways we do this in individual situations, but that make sure that they do it.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. So what you just mentioned brought me to something that I did a few days ago. I decided to learn about Buddhism.
Mhm.
And then one of the first rules, at least the ones that I come across, is that in life includes suffering, right? Now, once you get to that point where you're like, okay, life includes suffering. Now, every challenge life throws at you, you're like, okay, that's part of life, because the storyline you're telling yourself is life includes suffering. Now, if the storyline would be, no, life is all about rainbows and, I don't know, unicorns, and you face a challenge, you're like, oh, this is so unfair. Life is not supposed to be about suffering, right? So it all starts with what is it that you expect to happen? What are your expectations? Now, how do I get to this? When you mentioned we need to accept that there will be conflicts, right? The
Mhm.
pure acceptance that there will be conflicts, because there is no world in which you and I or other people that get to work together, that get to live together, have kids together, whatever, right? In whatever context, that they always have the same opinion. That world does not exist. So if conflict is a difference in opinion, by default, there will be a lot of conflicts in our lives, no matter where we look. So building that skill set and that awareness of how to deal with those conflicts, not avoiding them, not wishing for them not being there, but actually dealing with them, I think it's a crucial skill. And I love the fact that you're working on this, and that you're to some extent dedicating your life's work to
Yes.
helping people do that, right?
And Sohrab, also think about you. I know you have a very strong perspective also on product leadership, and you're a product guy, and I know that you really support people in creating good products. So when you think about avoiding conflicts in product development, so how good can these solutions, these
Not good.
products be
Not
when you don't stand up and say, I don't think this is a good idea, or I have a better one. So in Germany, we say, der Klügere rippt nach. The was smarter guys says, I step back, I don't rise. But what if he is the smartest and has the best solution?
Yeah.
Nobody will learn about it. So
And
it's
why
not
would
about,
we, just a second, why would we have to step back, right?
right,
Stepping back means you avoid the conflict.
because you have learned it in your family, for instance, and I don't want to change this, but create a room where we see there are different strategies dealing with the conflicts, and all of them are okay. And when I do team buildings, I'm not only talking about working agreements and dailies and stuff, I make them aware of how I socialized growing up, being educated when it comes to conflicts and to struggles. So coming back to this product development, it opens the room for creativity. It opens the room for communication. It strengthens the team identity. And this is what we want to have, because conflicts, and even dysfunctional conflicts, they have a really strong position. Because when you think about companies dealing with change, conflicts, they really make it possible that collaboration and the order and everything can be destroyed because there was a conflict. And so leadership has to deal with that we will have conflicts, and they deal with the unsafety and they find trust. But it's about creating an attitude towards conflicts and find ways to regulate them. And this is what I try to bring into teams and to organizations. And I know there is a professional background which is necessary, but in the mediation, we always say, okay, go into it and try to create these rooms where people can talk about that.
Oh, this is fascinating, Bernd. I think we could go for hours talking about that, because I'm learning so much from you. But we have a time box on this conversation.
Yes.
And that time box is coming to an end. So my final question to you, Bernd, is where can people learn more about you if they're interested and curious about your experience, how should they reach out to you if they want to work with you?
I know that we have created a great community. You have created a great community. So I'm really thankful that I'm part of that. So whenever you want to reach out to me, you can be sure that me as an Agile ambassador, you can contact me via this network. Of course, you will also find me on LinkedIn. I do a lot of formats. I'm a speaker on conferences. You can hold out for my website. It's called Der Team Dynamo, and you also can ask for other companies I have worked with, because this is very important for me on my website as well. You feel that there are quotes from other companies, and it's not only here in Cologne. I work all over Germany or in Austria. Just make sure that you ask for me, and I'm there for any conversation and any help. I have some podcasts where you can also check on Spotify, on YouTube. So there is a way that you can find me and get in contact with me. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and learn more about it. So with
Yeah.
that said, Bernd, thank you so much. I learned a lot. Thank you. It was
Thanks for having me.
fascinating, and I'm very happy. And I want to say this also on the record, basically, that you decided to become an Agile Academy ambassador. You are truly enriching our community, and I make sure the first time we face any conflict, we'll get you in the room to be the mediator.
Thanks for having me, Sohrab. I look forward to it. And let's take this step to do the cooking together, like we said.
Absolutely,
Right?
absolutely. All right. Thank
Thanks
you,
for
man.
having me.
Bye.
Bye bye.